Welcome to this Connect University session on the Digital Decade Policy Programme. Today I'm delighted to have the opportunity to moderate this session because it is the first time that we hold a public webinar on the Digital Decade Policy Programme since it entered into force on the 9th of January of this year. As some of you may know, the Digital Decade Policy Programme is a monitoring and cooperation mechanism to achieve common targets and objectives for Europe's digital transformation by 2030. But what exactly do we mean by that? For the first time, the European Parliament, the European Commission and Member States have agreed on concrete objectives and targets that they want to achieve in the next decade. They have also agreed on a government framework that will guide this achievement of targets, and they have signed a declaration of digital rights and principles that will be a bit like the EU's digital DNA. But where does all of this come from? And what is the context that has influenced the making of this important policy program? What do we want to achieve exactly, and how will we achieve it concretely together? How can different sectors contribute to the making of this Europe transformation, and how can they benefit also from this change? So these are some of the questions that we will discuss in this webinar today, thanks to a series of distinguished speakers, which I will present to you in a moment. Just some housekeeping points before we start. The webinar will be divided into two sections. The first part, we will have two keynote speeches, the first one being from our Deputy Director General, Renate Nicolai, and the second one by the Member of Parliament, Martina Dlabajova. They will speak more about the context of the digital decade, the governance mechanism, some of the targets, and, if time allows, the international context of it. In the second part of the webinar, we will have a panel discussion with some experts in the field. We will have Ms. Laura Eiro from the Finnish Ministry of Digital Transformation, Ms. Alice Albizzati from Revaya, and Ms. Federica Bordelot from Eurocities. So without further ado, I will present to you Ms. Renate Nicolai. Ms. Nicolai has joined our Director General of DG Connect in November of 2022. And before that, she served as head of cabinet of Vera Jourova, now Vice President for Values and Transparency. Ms. Nicolai has worked extensively on matters like the rule of law, media freedom, and disinformation. She also played a key role in the adoption of the data protection reform, the negotiations on EU-US data transfer arrangement, and online hate speech. Ms. Renate Nicolai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lavinia. Good morning to everybody and welcome you all to this Connect University on the Digital Decade Programme 2030. I'm very happy to be part of this session. And I only joined DG Connect on the 1st of December, by the way. President von der Leyen has called this decade the Digital Decade. And she has made the digital transition one of the key political objectives and priorities of this Commission, together with the green transition and with resilience. And not the least, the COVID experience that we all went through has helped us all to understand the importance of the digital transition. We would simply not have been able to deal with the challenge of the pandemic in the same way without digital means. They helped us to continue to work, to study, to stay in touch, to shop, and much more. And they also showed us the risks of potential digital divides in our society. For sure, it has been a wake-up call for those who had not understood the importance of the digital transition. And it has been a catalyst for our work. And I dare say it has changed forever certain practices in all our lives, professionally and socially. We have in the EU, and a lot with the work of DG Connect, advanced tremendously digital policy and rulemaking over the past years. The most visible examples are the new digital rulebooks of the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act, which make us front runners worldwide in bringing accountability, better protection and choice to the platform economy. Building on our data strategy and on our solid fundamental law of the General Data Protection Regulation, We are also developing new structures on access to data and interoperability, which will be crucial for the Internet of Things and for the new wave of use of data for industrial purposes in many sectors. And the situation we face today geopolitically, with the war in Ukraine, has brought to the forefront new digital challenges we need to address. We need resilient, secure, and trustworthy infrastructures. We need efficient ways to deal with information war propaganda. We need better preparedness to deal with cyber attacks. We need goods and services that have cybersecurity built in. We need to address technological dependencies, for instance, regarding chips, and the linked fragility of our supply chains. We need to ensure to stay on top of technological developments, for instance, on quantum computing or on AI. We need to embrace and design ourselves the promising transition from the two-dimensional internet to its three-dimensional version, the metaverse. We need to be makers, not takers, of its technological opportunities. The virtual worlds should be driven by flourishing European ecosystems of businesses and technological innovation and citizens that trust it. And we must not forget in this one important aspect. In the end, digital is not only about technology and algorithms. It is about empowering people. We stand for a digital transformation that puts humans at the center, in line with our values. This is why we also have the digital principles to guide policymakers and companies through this digital transformation. And this is why we work with allies around the world to align together on these principles. It is in this political context that we place the Digital Decade Policy Programme 2030. It can help us shape a clear digital transformation that serves our competitiveness and our societies. And this programme is not just a Commission programme. It constitutes the first ever European digital strategy agreed by Member States, the Commission and the European Parliament. Together, we have agreed on concrete targets and objectives to guide our digital transition in 4 key areas: digital skills, infrastructure, digitalization of business, and online public services. Let me remind us why this is important. Let's take digital skills first. Today, 2 out of 5 Europeans are still digitally illiterate. But we know that all citizens need to be able to use and work with digital technology. Or let's take digital technology experts. Companies and the public sector in all countries are desperate to find them. Today we only have around 9 million, but we need many more. And this is why we agreed on a very ambitious target to have 20 million ICT experts by 2030. And this will only work if we can also encourage more women to consider careers in this sector. Let's look at digital infrastructures. We are simply too slow in rolling out enhanced digital connectivity. We need faster rollout of 5G if we want to have smart cities, smart mobility, online learning, or remote medicine solutions. This is why we want to achieve gigabit connectivity for all and enable 5G in all populated areas in the EU by 2030. Very soon, we will be presenting new measures to facilitate and reduce the costs of the deployment of such gigabit networks and launch a broad consultation on the future of the electronic communications sector and its infrastructure. Let me here also mention the example of microprocessors. European companies are present at different levels of the semiconductor value chain. Yet overall, Europe has unfortunately fallen behind in cutting-edge fabrication technologies and in chip design, exposing itself to a number of vulnerabilities. The recent shortage of semiconductor chips in the automotive sector halted production at several car factories and illustrated Europe's dependency on other regions. This is why we want the production of semiconductors in Europe to double from its current share of the world population by 2030. Let me move now to the transformation of businesses. Too few SMEs are untapping their digital potential. This was something very close to the heart of Mrs. Martina Dlabayova, who is with us here today, and who played a key role in the Digital Decade programme. We need to support SMEs as the backbones of our business community to move into the digital gear. This is why we agreed that 90% of European SMEs should reach basic levels of digital intensity by 2030. Let me finally touch on digital public services. I'm sure you all have experienced frustrations when you had to go in person to an administration instead of interacting remotely and filling in a lot of paper rather than doing things online. Therefore, all key public services and electronic medical records should be accessible for citizens online. Only then we will really move the entire society into a digital mode. So how can we best work together to achieve these important targets and objectives? Well, we need to make the Digital Decade Programme our common compass. Our annual report on the state of the Digital Decade will be a key tool in this. We are already working on the first one to be issued mid-2023. We want to have it ready for the Digital Assembly, which the Swedish presidency is organizing for around mid-June. The report will critically assess where we stand and will honestly point to gaps, strategic weaknesses, and high-risk dependencies. It will also indicate where action is needed at member states level to get where we want to be in 2030, notably also with the help of the trajectories for each target. Equally important will be the national roadmaps, which member states will design. A whole government approach will be needed to set out policies, measures, and actions to meet the objectives and the digital targets. We will hear later from our Finnish representative, Mrs. Laura Airo, about her experience in leading work on such a whole government approach. But we will also use the Digital Decade to advance joint industrial projects, notably to deploy large-scale pan-European digital infrastructures and services. And building strategic digital capacities is often difficult, if not impossible, for a single member state. Therefore, we created the concept of multi-country projects, under which member states can pool resources and cooperate closely. And European Digital Infrastructure Consortia and EDICs are available to implement these multi-country projects in different areas. We have recently launched an informal call for expression of interest for these EDICs. We hope that we will receive a lot of ideas from member states for such EDICs, including in industrial sectors, and we plan to discuss the outcome of it in our next meeting of the Digital Decade Board on 9th of March that I will be chairing. I'm also very interested in hearing the investor's perspective from Mrs. Alice Albisati later in our panel discussion. Let me finally say some words on the international element of the Digital Decade Programme. With our Declaration on Digital Principles, we want to lead with allied partners at a global stage to ensure a human-centric digital transition. This is why we engage with the United States as a key partner in the Trade and Technology Council, and why we are building digital partnerships with other like-minded partners such as Japan, South Korea, or Singapore. Our idea is to lead the work on standards and rules for the digital transition, to cooperate on research, and to ensure it stays human-centric. This is important globally, as we see systemic rivalry and other approaches in other parts of the world. This is why we have also established a partnership with the largest democracy in the world, India, to work together in a number of areas, such as high-power computing or AI, but also to try to resolve trade barriers. And we are working closely on the global network to support low- and middle-income countries in their digital transformation. And finally, we are in close touch with our candidate countries and our partners in the neighborhood to prepare them for future membership. And here, of course, Ukraine is a key focus. To conclude, I would like to stress that the digital decade must not become a bureaucratic exercise. We need all of you to join our efforts. There are also many ways to contribute at local level. Within the regions and the cities, I am therefore happy that we will have Mrs. Federica Bordelais to share with us a city perspective. I'm looking forward to our discussion. Today will be an opportunity to ask questions, to give comments, and a successful digital transformation relies on the involvement and the commitment of all, the public and all the stakeholders. Let's shape the digital decade together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nicolai, for this very comprehensive speech. I'm now very happy to say we have with us today the Member of Parliament, Martina Dlabajová. Martina Dlabajová has been a Member of Parliament since 2014. She is the Renew Europe coordinator in the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy, and the co-chair of the SME Intergroup in the European Parliament and the chair of Renew Europe SME Task Force. In her work, she mainly focuses on SMEs, family businesses, creative industries, digitalization, and its impact on labor market, research, and innovation. Today, she will tell us more about her view on the Digital Decade program, how it was tackled in the European Parliament. She will tell us about the impact on citizens and businesses, and much more. Ms. Dlabajová, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It is an honor to be speaking to you today about one of the most important initiatives currently being undertaken by the European Union, the EU Digital Decade Policy Programme. As we are all aware, we live in an age where technology is rapidly advancing and transforming every aspect of our lives. From the way we communicate and do business, to the way we access information and learn, digital technologies have become an integral part of our daily lives. Stop! Come on! This was not me. Believe it or not, this introduction of my today's contribution was written by artificial intelligence. Based on my few requirements that I wrote down for it, it was done in 1 second. Welcome to the Digital Decade. Well, seriously, even though the introduction was close to perfection, something was still missing, wasn't it? It was the expression of how glad I am to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation to Connect University session, and thank you for the welcome. Good to see you all, and especially good to see Renate. Welcome in this new role, Renate. Happy to see you. Well, EU Digital Decade Policy Programme, why it is so important and why we need it. As Renate Nicolai already said, the EU Digital Decade Policy Programme is a policy framework that aims to make the EU a world leader in the digital economy by 2030. Not only as politicians, but even more as citizens and businesses, we see how much digitalization becomes already a part of our lives. But there is still some challenges which we have to overcome. Just remember how fast the technology is developing and what it demands from you. So from my perspective, the main goal of this very important initiative is that the EU is fully aware of what digitalization brings to people and also to companies, and want them to have access to these technologies and use them in everyday life or business. But of course, it is not always so easy. And me and Digital Decade have a rather long personal history, as I was responsible for this negotiation in the European Parliament in ITRE committee. I was the reporter. I have to say that we progressed on this file very quickly because there was a common will from all European institutions. And I admit that I tried to lead the negotiation process in such a way that the Digital Decade ended in its final stage of negotiation on the table of the Czech presidency. It was not an easy negotiation at all. The last round of trialogue, which is EU jargon for the negotiation among the three institutions, ended on July 14, just before 3 o'clock in the morning. We managed to reach an agreement, and the Europe's Digital Decade is marked by valuable compromise. Everyone involved did an amazing job. Final text was adopted at the plenary meeting of the European Parliament in November last year. The Council adopted the text on 8th of December, and the report was published in the official journal of the EU on the 19th of December 2022. So what exactly have been achieved and what does it mean for the citizens and businesses? One of the key goals of the EU Digital Decade Policy Programme is to bridge the digital divide that exists between different regions and social groups in the EU. This means that the EU is committed to ensure that all citizens have access to high-speed internet and digital technologies, regardless of where they live or their socio-economic background. This is an issue for many countries. My country, the Czech Republic, is not an exemption. To be able to benefit from digitalization, we need secure, fast, and reliable access to the internet and information on one side, and knowledge how to use it on the other side. Having the tool does not automatically mean that it will serve us in a good way. We need to know how to use it properly, and we must be aware of possible disadvantages. Therefore, digital skills are so much needed in our personal life as well as in our jobs. Another important goal is to create a more competitive digital single market. This means that the EU is working to remove barriers to cross-border trade and investment in the digital economy so that businesses and entrepreneurs can prosper across the EU. What is very much needed is the harmonization of fragmented rules, especially for SMEs. The level playing field is crucial to be able to provide their goods and services across Europe. SMEs need simple rules, as they need to focus on innovative services and products instead of how to fulfill all the legal and technical requirements that can differ from member state to member state. The EU Digital Decade Policy Programme also seeks to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in the digital economy. This means that the EU is investing in research and development in areas such as artificial intelligence, 5G networks, and the Internet of Things to help spur innovation and create new business opportunities. But we have to be aware that, especially in the case of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, we must carefully assess the information it is delivering and for what purpose. As I showed at the start of my presentation, technology can help us, but we should not blindly follow it. For example, earlier this month, the New York City's Department of Education announced a ban on the widely popular chatbot ChatGPT from its school devices and networks, which some have warned could inspire more student cheating. The artificial intelligence brings us also to the aspect of protecting citizens' privacy and security online. This means that the EU is working to ensure that personal data is handled in a way that respects privacy and that citizens are protected from cyber threats and harmful uses of data that contravene EU values. Nobody wants his or her medical or other personal records are public or worse, misused. The same applies to corporate data and intellectual property rights. Renate already mentioned the main objectives of Digital Decade Policy Programme. So I will just try to go to the more concrete objectives which we agreed open as 3 European institutions. I want to mention those who are the most interesting, like the EU wants to train 20 million ICT specialists by 2030. This is what we absolutely supported from the European Parliament. In 2030, at least 80% of the population in Europe will have basic digital skills. Again, full support from the European Parliament. EU wants to have first computer with quantum acceleration by 2030. By 2030, Europe wants to have 75% of EU companies using cloud, artificial intelligence and big data, and double the number of EU unicorns. More than 90% of SMEs will reach at least basic level of digital intensity. And what is of course connected is public services. So key public services will be 100% online. In e-health, 100% of citizens will have access to medical records online. Digital identity, something we are just working right now in the European Parliament, in the ITRE committee, 100% of citizens have access to digital ID. So at this moment, you might be asking yourself a question: how will all this be done? First of all, it is important to say that we are not inventing anything new, and I want to underline this. We have everything we need. It already works somehow and is set up. We just need to put it together. The Digital Decade is a plan to achieve the change together. It is designed to guide countries and show them the way. It is a common agenda, and it is in everyone's interest to follow it. Speaking of citizens, SMEs, industry, and even member states. Efficient use of digital tools will help everyone. It is also a plan to keep track of what has been achieved and where there is still work to be done. By the way, the goals were consulted with member states, so they are realistic and achievable. The main assumption, of course, is that the European Commission, the member states, and all relevant stakeholders will work closely together. And I'm happy that Renate underlined this as well. This working closely together is very important. It is up to everyone to do their part, but to work efficiently and smart, collaboration is very much needed. As was already mentioned, the member states will submit strategic roadmaps, how to achieve goals and which actions they will take. They will include planned regulatory measures and investments, and these strategic roadmaps can serve also as sharing best practices, as they can be updated every 2 years if needed. This will help to move collectively towards the common targets and objectives, and this is important while recognizing different starting points among member states. By the way, this was a big issue during the negotiation between European Parliament and the Council, this big digital gap we still are having in Europe. So there are really different starting points among member states. But what we need to underline that we want to achieve the digital decade goals together. I can't wait that the European Commission will publish a first on the state of the digital decade. And it will be published each year and will present it to the other EU institutions. European Parliament wants to have a strong role and wants really to discuss together with Council and Commission what we can do better. I am really looking forward to see the first one and hope to be surprised by what was achieved already in the early stage of the program. One thing, another concrete thing I want to mention is multi-country projects. This is for me very interesting, and these projects are great when one single member state could not develop big projects on its own. So sharing knowledge, sharing resources, sharing common approach is crucial to deliver services such as European Common Data Infrastructure and Services, cybersecurity, connected public administration, European Blockchain Service Infrastructure, European Digital Innovation Hubs. I am really hoping that these multi-country projects will be able to profit from synergies and attract and combine different sources of EU and member states funding. Of course, they can benefit from Recovery and Resilience Facility, from Digital Europe program, from the Connecting Europe Facility, Invest EU program, Horizon Europe program, you name it. And of course, member states can also contribute to multi-country projects from their regional or national budgets. And other opportunity may be provided by the European Investment Bank and other entities. So I think this is something that we will really see how the synergy will be working. So this is probably in a nutshell what the EU's digital decade is and what it can or wants to bring to the citizens or businesses. In conclusion, I would like to do a couple of important remarks. First, we can talk here about how important digitalization is and all the good things the digital decade will bring. But if we don't get people's trust for it, then everything might be useless. So I think that if people don't accept digitalization, we won't move any forward. So trust is very important. Second, in Europe, we generally do not know how to work with best practices. We talk about best practices a lot, but we don't use them. We often invent something new, and at the same time, someone has already done it. I've been saying this for a long time. We should share best practices, and this also applies in digitalization. And last point I want to make, and it's very dear and very important for me, these are the small and medium-sized enterprises. During the negotiation of Digital Decade Policy Program, it was my highest priority. I did not want the digitalization would lead to increased administration and costs for small and medium-sized businesses. For that reason, I also emphasized that the representatives of SMEs participated in the negotiation of the Digital Decade. We consulted them directly. Of course, they were consulted by the European Commission, but they were consulted by me as reporter as well. Some form of dialogue with these representatives and associations will also be necessary while evaluating how the member states are doing in the future, of course. Well, I think I will stop here. Digital decade is many, many things, but above all, it is an opportunity. And it is also up to us all, to make it a success. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to listen to panel discussion and looking forward to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dlabayova. I think your intervention was very useful because it gave us a bit an idea of what concretely we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it. I hope that these first two presentations have clarified some of your doubts and questions, participants, showing you a bit also the spirit of what we're aiming to do in the next years. Just a bit of housekeeping so that you know where we're going now. We will have a panel discussion now just in a minute. Note that there is also a background note and background slides on the Futurium that you can access for more details on the technical part. So we encourage you to look at those. There will be also a short question and answer at the end of the panel discussion. So please use the Slido to address any questions to any of the speakers today. So now let's move to the panel discussion, where we will focus a bit more on the views and experiences of stakeholders that work on the field. I think what Ms. Dlabayova said about the fact that we already have what we need is very interesting, that we need to work closely with stakeholders, and this is very much needed. And this is what we want to basically open up today, a conversation between different stakeholders who are already working in the field, who are already contributing to the digital decade. We will talk about best practices. We will start first and foremost with a question on what the different panelists think about the Digital Decade Policy Programme. We will then move to a sharing of best practices, and then we will have a moment to reflect on the main takeaways of the panel discussion. So just before starting, I would like to introduce to you all the panelists that are here with us today. We have Ms. Laura Eiro. Ms. Eiro is Director General of the Data Safety and Security Department at the Ministry of Digital Transformation in Finland. She serves as Secretary General at the Ministerial Working Group on developing the digital transformation, data economy and public administration. And she is also the chair in the Interministerial Digital Office. We also have with us today Ms. Federica Bordelot. Ms. Bordelot is Head of Digital Transformation at Eurocities. For those of you who don't know Eurocities, it is the network of major European cities with more than 200 members. She supervises the policy and project work of the digital team, providing direction to flagship initiatives like the Living in the EU. We also have with us today Ms. Alice Albizzati. Ms. Albizzati is co-founder of Revaya, a leading sustainable growth investor, and she invests in European growth companies with global and sustainable ambitions, such as Aircall, Frontify, and DeepKey. She will tell us more about these companies later on. Alice Albizzati has participated in the financing, structuring, and oversight of more than 35 companies. So you would probably ask yourself why we invited these panelists. The idea is to have some insights from a number of stakeholders that come from different sectors. So Ms. Laura Eiro will represent the member state perspective. Ms. Federica Bordelot will represent the local perspectives, the perspectives of cities. And Ms. Alice Albizzati will give us more on the investor side. So let me ask the first question to Ms. Laura Eiro. Ms. Eiro, Finland has demonstrated its commitment to contribute to the digital decade above and even beyond the programme's targets, building on its front-runner position in Europe and worldwide. You have, and I know you have already reflected thoroughly about the direction you would like to take and have very much been active in the Digital Decade Board discussions. What sectors do you think are already advancing well in terms of digitalization in your country, in Finland? And where do you expect to encounter more difficulties? The general question, let me say, is what are the key elements of your digital strategy? Ms. Eiro, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and indeed I have been very much hands-on in implementing the Digital Decade Policy Programme in Finland, so very happy to be here and share our experiences. If I first may start, as you said, we really have been supporting the programme from the start, and I believe that it is a really the horizontal and strategic tool, as it has also measurable goals that will help us in advancing in the EU to really promote the digital transformation. We of course need legislation, but this is the tool that makes us more competitive and helps us to form our society. So we actually set up the process to draft our national compass over a year ago in Finland, and have been building that parallel to the EU development. And I would say that all the 4 compass points are really necessary, and it's important to proceed in all of them at the same time. As digitalization is a systemic change, so there is no sector that can be left behind. But of course, some sector-specific remarks can be made from our side. I would firstly say the e-government, so digitizing the public services, both for people and business, is one of the areas where we expect to have a lot of impact. We will achieve better services, and we will also build a basis for digital transformation in all society in other sectors through those services. And of course, we are able to make the public sector more efficient. So, for example, in our national targets, we aim to digitize or even automate approximately 40 of the most significant live event service packages. So a live event can be, for example, moving abroad to Finland or setting up an enterprise. And we want to make the whole event as easy and as automated as possible, even though it comprises lots of cross-sectoral services. So we have to put the company or the human there first, no matter of the admin boundaries. Then other sector I would like to mention is the mobility services and logistic sector. They have a lots of unused potential in digitalization. A more efficient system would contribute to climate goals, and of course in Finland the logistics costs are relatively high due to our location, so being able to lower them by digitalization would contribute to the competitiveness of the whole Finland largely. That is why we are also very interested on the data spaces development in the field of mobility. Perhaps I should also mention health sector and environmental sector data spaces for obvious reasons as well. And finally, also I'd like to touch the SMEs support, as in across Europe. That is the tough point for Finland as well. So we need to help them to untap their potential, for example, through financial support and advisory services. So what we have been doing so far in Finland with our national compass is that we have drafted a vision and objectives and key targets, and at the moment we are then drafting the more concrete implementation plan. We will have a general elections coming in April in Finland, so we hope to be able to present the full compass then to the new government and get that confirmed, and hopefully the investment package confirmed as well at that time. And what we have been doing is that we have been really raised the level of ambition to reflect our national perspectives. So in some extent we have been setting the targets higher for Finland as what has been set in the EU compass that applies, for example, in the basic education or basic digital skills, where we want to aim at 87% instead of 80%. We also want to have cyber security skills as the basic skills for everything, etc. So perhaps that's the remarks. But not least, I would also call for the cooperation, like the previous speakers. So one of the teams in our national compass is the cross-sectoral management of digitalization, and for that we have established a digital transformation ministerial working group, as well as a digital office that then collects all the ministries together. I will talk a bit more about them later on, but that is something that we see as part of the implementation through the whole decade, and it also helps us then to interact with the stakeholders through implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aido. So a lot of work done and a lot of work to do in the future as well. Thank you very much. So you talked about the national perspective, let's say, of the Digital Decade Policy Program. My second question to Ms. Federica Bordelot. You are head of digital transformation at Eurocities, so as I said before, the network of major European cities. And one of your focus areas is smart cities and digital transformation. Can you tell us a bit more about this goal and why it is so important to you and to local communities and cities? Ms. Bordelot, can you hear us? I think the microphone, yes.
Okay, very good. So thank you so much for the invitation, and allow me first of all to make a remark, because I have to say I'm extremely pleased to participate in this all-female panel to discuss about digital transformation, which is an area in the sector in which women unfortunately often are underrepresented. So thanks for the invitation, and I'm very pleased to provide my contribution in this panel. Yes, I work at Eurocities, the network of major European cities, and Eurocities, so it's the political network for cities, mayors, and leaders to really advocate cities' needs and concerns.
Ms. Bordelot, I'm very sorry to interrupt you. If you could just put your microphone a bit closer so we can hear you better.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but very slightly. I mean, it's the volume is still quite low.
Oh, okay. Is it better now?
A bit better. If you could just keep the microphone close. Thank you.
I will keep it like this.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So what I was just saying that indeed, so I work at Eurocities, the network of major European cities. It's a political network for city mayors and leaders to really advocate cities' needs and concerns towards the EU institutions. And among the different areas of work, ranging from environment to culture, social affairs, mobility and transport, of course, digital transformation and smart cities policy and innovation is a crucial, let's say, aspect of their work. Going to the Europe's Digital Decade Policy Program and its concrete targets and objectives, as well as the guiding principles, it's really a key tool. First of all, is a key tool let's say, for concretely help digital transformation at EU, fostering the collaboration at all levels of governments, and also with the ecosystem players. I think this is an important aspect of the Europe's digital decade, and an aspect that we as local authorities really want to stress. For the local level, it provides also a framework for strong political decisions for the implementation of the digital strategies at local level, and also to offer new funding opportunities. Concretely, I'm thinking about, for instance, the targets related to digital infrastructures and its objectives on gigabyte connectivity and implementation and of 5G, 6G coverage. I'm thinking about specifically on cities like Madrid, Riga, Turin, that are really front runners. They have specific strategies to boost connectivity and projects to define and then validate as well the use cases on IoT and 5G connectivity in a lab setting. If I think about Madrid, for instance, this is they are really currently testing new networks and antennas for deployment of next generation 5+ and 6G systems supported by a public-private partnership. Then Riga, for instance, with their 5G territory platform, which is an initiative that brings together key players in 5G development from the public and the private sector to really develop a robust and aligned 5G ecosystem, and to really join also forces for interoperable implementation of 5G solutions. Riga is also engaged in developing educational virtual reality content using 5G networks. So also the content more related to the use of technologies also for education purposes, and in this aspect. And then all these practices, if you like, all these projects are also helped in terms of funding and financing, because all our cities are very much aware, also thanks to Eurocities and the network that in a way inform them about all the opportunities that are at EU level. I'm thinking about the Digital Europe program, but also at the Connecting Europe Facilities funding and the calls on 5G for smart communities that can really help develop further these initiatives and projects. Just to conclude, I would like also to give another examples, because if in a way the Europe's digital decade is, it provides a framework, to develop further specific, actions, the cities do develop and implement their digital strategies and activities that can really strongly contribute to the success of the EU agenda. And that's the reason why I'm thinking it's really important to involve, the local level in the development of the roadmaps and in their implementation. Just to give one last example in that sense, I'm thinking of the collaboration of over 20 between cities and regions working to extend the reach of the Tallinn Declaration priorities to the city level, and to support really local authorities in delivering digital and user-centric services. This is a project called User-Centric Cities, and the project developed a platform for local authorities to help them, on one hand, assess and compare their performance with their peers, and to also share experiences, knowledge, and lessons learned. And this is really a concrete contribution, I think, to the digitalization of public services and to the targets related to that.
Thank you, Ms. Bordelot. You talked a lot about private and public partnerships. Today we have with us Ms. Ale Salbizzati, who will give us a bit more a sense of the investor perspective, so the company's perspective as well. So, Ms. Salbizzati, Revaya is a leading European sustainable growth investor. partnering with entrepreneurs that have global ambitions and sustainable leadership. This is what you write in your website, which I found very interesting. And your portfolio includes a number of different companies from, for example, one of them, Welcome to the Jungle, that provides young employees with content to help them in their careers, or Muse, that is a system designed to automate operations for hoteliers. So when investing in a company or a startup, what is the business model that you look for? How do you choose between one company or the other? And in this sense, I would like to introduce the part on values, the Declaration of Digital Rights and Principles, which is also very much important in the Digital Decade Policy Program. To what extent is your choice of investment influenced by a judgment on the company's values? Ms. Albizzati.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me part of this discussion, which I think is very interesting. Indeed, I think it's very interesting to combine the point of view of private stakeholders, such as us as a growth stage investors, Revaya, together with public initiatives, so at the European level or at country-specific level. So I think this discussion is really interesting. So the digital program is very much aligned with what we do at Revaya. So at Revaya, our goal is, as you just said, is to back the next generation of sustainable tech leaders. So investing in companies that are high growth, very innovative, and that are building global leadership position out of Europe, but expanding internationally through the European continent, but also expanding in the US and Asia globally. What is interesting is that the focus of our investment scope is very coherent with the four main points of the compass to identify the main goals. So digitally skilled population and highly skilled digital professional is something that we address with some of our portfolio companies. You just mentioned Welcome to the Jungle. Welcome to the Jungle is a French company that is helping companies do employer branding. So doing the best match between people that are working for a job but with a mission, and with companies that are looking to attract talent from the digital industry. So it's something that what we like to do at Revaya is to invest in companies that obviously are, from a financial point of view, very performant, but also we like to prioritize in our deal flow companies that have a mission, a positive model. And Welcome to the Jungle is a very good example of a company that, through its model, help build a more digitally skilled population and help digitalize SMEs. I think also the three other pillars are very much aligned with what we're doing at Revaya. So the digital infrastructure is also an area of interest for us. We believe that it is highly important to build the infrastructure of tomorrow, relying not only on US infrastructure and on Asian infrastructure, but also relying on our own talent pool. And that's why, for example, we invested into a company that's called Platform.sh, which is helping web developers build websites and build applications. So it's a technical tool. And what is interesting in the way that Platform is operating is that through their technology, through the use of their hosting cloud, they are able to provide a digital infrastructure that can be more efficient from an energy point of view. And we believe that the tech industry is growing a lot. We launched Revaya in 2018 because we noticed that there was a very strong momentum in the European tech ecosystem. And one of our convictions is that today it is a must to invest in companies that are able to be aligned with the current environmental and social challenges. And so we don't really talk a lot about the carbon footprint of the tech industry. Nevertheless, it is an industry that today accounts for 4% of the global gas emission, and that percentage is expected to grow. And so we think that as an investor, we have a role to play to help companies to finance them, but also to provide them with the support, the value creation support, so that they can scale and so that they can scale in a sustainable way. So these are a few examples of businesses that we've backed and that are very much aligned with the target set by this very large initiative. I think that something that is very interesting for us is the fact that this initiative is multi-country and also multi-stakeholders. So as a growth stage investors, we are investing throughout Europe. Our market is a very international one. And we think that it's very important that every countries are collaborating and that with the European Commission, we can have more support. And so to go back to your question on what do we look for when we invest into a company, we look obviously for a company that has the potential to scale, but we also look for, we analyze its business model and we invest in companies with neutral business model and we prioritize positive business model. And a second pillar that we're looking for is we look at the business practices. And something that we think we can help nurture is to help companies build more sustainable trajectories. What does that mean? It means that all of the businesses have impact on society. They are attracting talent, they are hiring them, developing them. It has an impact on the environment through its scope 1 consumption, but also through scope 2, scope 3 energy consumption. And it has an impact on government. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to help our portfolio companies be best in class in terms of environmental, social, and governance. So this is what we call in our investor language the ESG. And this is something that we're going to look for. So is the company, through its model, providing something that is useful for our goal? Yes, no, and we exclude some, and we accept companies that have a neutral model, but we prioritize companies with positive model. And then second question, how does it interact? And we calculate diversity. We discuss the fact that there are very few women in the tech industry. And so we're trying to encourage having more and more women. We're trying to encourage our portfolio companies reducing their carbon footprint. And so this, I think, this digital program is an opportunity to encourage more and more sustainability within the European tech ecosystem. And we believe that by having this investment mindset at the growth stage, so once companies have already proven their business model, have already generating 5-10 million of revenues, but they can do 100-200 million euro of revenues. So these are companies at scale that have hundreds of employees. We believe that this can really have a leverage and be very strong pillars for the European economy.
Thank you, Ms. Albizzati. So I think you have touched already on some of the main points of the Digital Decade Policy Program when it comes to targets, but also values. So the sustainability part is very much present in your investment fund. So I'm seeing already some comments and questions on the Slido. Well, one of them is a comment on how I pronounced Miss Federica Bordelot's name. I think this is the right way of saying it, so I'm very sorry for that. And there's already one question for Ms. Dlabayova, but I really much open it to all the panel. I really want to encourage everyone to jump in where they see that they can say and contribute with something. Ms. Dlabayova, you talked about the fact that we talk a lot about best practices, but we don't necessarily use them, and sometimes we develop things that then we discover that it has already been developed in the past. So could you elaborate on how to share best practices in a way that is, let's say, useful and in a concrete way, let's say, and do we have or envisage to implement a knowledge management process or tool? Ms. Dabayova, but again, as I said before, if anyone else in the panel wants to add or jump in, please do.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, indeed, I think there will be a need to improve and broaden the current knowledge sharing tools that the Commission and Member States have at disposal. And I really think that this structural dialogue can help. And by improving the sharing of best practices and knowledge, I mean making it a real discussion and cooperation tool, not an online exchange of messages while waiting for reply. It must be a real debate, a real dialogue. As I said, what will be crucial is communication and cooperation, even brainstorming to reach common targets, because I underline this, digital decade targets are common European targets. So every member state has to contribute to reach those common targets. Lessons learned can be taken, for example, from preparing the partnership agreements and recovery and resilience plans. We should use this lesson learned because we learned a lot. It was a training for both member states and the Commission. And since we aim to common aims of the EU, each member state is working with the Commission on their own document, sometimes without taking into account approaches of the other member states. So that's the sharing of best practice, which should get better. So from my point of view, crucial is to share best practices even during the preparatory phase. So when the document is being prepared, so before it's discussed something as a report. So before, let's share it, not only during the future revisions. I hope I answered. I tried.
Yes, thank you very much. I think maybe if no one else has anything to add, I have one question directed again on best practices to really get into the concreteness of these best practices to Ms. Laura Eiro. So I know, Ms. Eiro, that Finland, as we said before already, has been very active in drafting its digital report and is now working on preparing its national roadmap. Can you tell us maybe more about how you coordinated work between different ministries, for example, if you had a national contact point for any questions coming in from stakeholders, if you had a working group, how did you organize work and how did you work on this report in the first place?
Yes, thank you very much, and indeed what we have been trying to do is to learn from each other, and as it was said previously, we just have to also learn to share our experiences at the European level at the early stages. But I believe that this is a good start today that we have for that, and also we can use the Digital Decade Board amongst the member states. I believe there is an atmosphere where everybody is sort of ready to talk about experiences and also share the experiences where somebody has not succeeded. That is as important as sharing the succeeded experiences. But coming to the Finnish way of working, we of course have had for long several programs to promote digitalization in various sectors, but actually now drafting a national compass on the basis of the EU Digital Decade has really leveled up the cross-sectoral collaboration and also stakeholder involvement. So what we first did was to set up a ministerial level working group for digital transformation comprising 7 of different ministers, including my minister, and that group coordinates also activities and situational awareness related to the digitalization and information policy, technology policy, to data economy, and also cyber security. So they oversee the national level development and also steer the development and draws up the necessary policy guidelines. And then for the interministerial cooperation, we also formed a coordination group that is called the Digital Office, and it has representatives from each ministry. So 12 ministries are involved in the work, and that is to coordinate the cooperation between the ministries and serve as a contact point for correspondence. So we indeed have a single email where everybody can approach us if they do not know the right ministry or contact point already. So it is a very easy accessible format, and we also do a lot of cooperation to collaborate with citizens and stakeholders. We have a rotating chairmanship, so that is between me, my colleagues in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Education and Culture, and that was also decided to have a very strong commitment from all those ministries who are maybe in the heart of the digital transformation, but as said, we have members from every other ministry in Finland as well. And our main task so far has been drafting the digital compass. I would say the key is the agile cooperation and good and early communications. So we all have our sort of different culture in each ministry, but then through early communication, it has been possible to collaborate very effectively and in a low hierarchic manner. We mostly work virtually, so we have frequent online meetings, we have shared digital folders and documents and draft, and we also brief stakeholders online on the developments. So that has been very useful as well, and it has been quite a task to draft the whole digital compass. So we have been compiling everything together that we've had so far, so all the government level existing strategies and policies, and identified the gaps in them, and then developed the new targets and cooperation, and streamlined our vision and key results. So for the first time we have the vision and objectives that really go across all the sectors, and we do see this as a sort of exercise for the whole Finland, and that is why it's been important to involve municipalities, cities, academia, and companies, associations from the start. So we opened the discussion with the stakeholder groups also at very early stages, and that is something that I would definitely recommend for everybody else to do as well, to share the sort of aim what we are doing and also gather ideas. So we've been having several stakeholder virtual online working groups or work sort of sessions. Altogether over 1,000 participants have been taking part. We have had 2 rounds for consultations for the compass, for the first draft and then the second draft, and they were very, very useful indeed. So perhaps these are the learnings, open early communication using online tools that have really helped us to be here where we are at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Seiro. I think you touched upon this element that Ms. Dlabayova mentioned, the cooperation and communication, not only within your ministry, but also between different ministries, which I think is very interesting. And I know that there's some members of the Digital Decade Board connected, so I hope and I'm sure that your experience will make some lessons learned. So maybe to move on, Ms. Bordelot, I see that in the Eurocities website, there are several different projects that you mentioned linked to the goal of smart cities and digitalization. Maybe could you tell us a bit more about maybe one or two, maybe one, because we don't have a lot of time, projects that you are closest to, and in particular, how do you make sure to drive strategies that involve both local and regional communities and central government? So how do you collaborate, if you collaborate with central governments? How do you participate, let's say, in national conversations as well?
I hope you can hear me. So I will try just to speak loud. Thank you so much for the question. Because indeed, I mean, we are involved in a number of different projects and initiatives, but for sure, the most valuable one, especially in this context, is for sure the Living.eu community and platform. I'm mentioning this because with the other speakers, I heard a lot about sharing best practices, learning from each other, collaboration exercise, and Living.eu is all this about. So it's about all this. So the Living.eu is a multi-level governance collaboration that brings together cities, regions, member states, and the EU to achieve digital transformation for all cities and communities in the EU. What we do is to really, so what we don't want to do is to reinvent the wheel. What we don't want to do is to start all over again with new best practices, as Ms. Davlayova was saying, with new pilot projects and so on. We want to capitalize from all the knowledge and all the practices that are and have been developed in the years by cities, regions, and also at the national level. We bring all these results together and we share with a much bigger community, if you like. Just to give the example, as I was mentioning before, the user-centric cities project. And this project will end in June, but the online benchmarking dashboard that they have created to compare the performances of cities will be transferred into the Living.eu platform for more cities to use it and also for further development. It's a platform that provides guidance and support for the signatories in their digital transformation journey. This is done through the work of the different subgroups that we have on financial, technical subgroup, the legal work, but also monitoring and measuring and capacity building. And it's really the way, for instance, on in the technical subgroup, for instance, for the OASC network, Open and Agile Smart Cities, to further develop the MIMS, the minimum interoperability mechanism, but it's also in the financial subgroup, really the forum where we can discuss ideas for multi-country projects, for instance. I'm thinking about many cities that would and are currently in dialogue with their national representatives to really feed into new ideas for local digital twins or local data platforms as new ideas, for multi-country projects. And I already know the cities like Bologna in Italy or Barcelona or Hanover, they have really already launched this process and this idea. So Living.eu is really wants really to be the platform to bring all the players together. It's not only for the public players, so not only for the level of governments, but also the private sectors, the academia, to really have this knowledge exchange, put it at the next level, if you like. So this is, I think, is really, is the initiative, the project that bring a bit, is the umbrella, if you like, in our association, that bring together all the different projects in smart cities and digital transformation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bordelot. So I want to now jump to implementation, because I think it's a very important aspect. What do we want to do next? What is it for the future? So I wanted to ask Ms. Albizzati about how she thinks in her, let's say, in her day-to-day with Revaya, to how would you think of contributing to the implementation of the Digital Decade Policy Program, or some of the targets, let's say, that are outlined in the policy program? And do you know already about ways of, for example, getting involved at the level of your member state in France, where you operate? So yes, if you have any ideas of how to get involved on the implementation side. And if not, if you want to ask questions to Ms. Nicolai, for example, or anyone in the panel that could know more.
Yes, that's a very good question. So from my perspective as an investor, what we can do in terms of implementation is to help create more tech companies out of Europe, and in particular, help create tech companies that scale out of Europe. And so one of the goals of the program is to double the number of unicorns, so companies that are valued over 1 billion euro in the coming years by 2030. I think this target is also a target that we have at the French level. And I assume that this is also a target that in many different countries we have. So I think being aligned on providing the financing, providing the equity for these companies is something that is critical from our point of view. What we observe on the market is that the tech industry is growing a lot in Europe, but the majority of the financing rounds that are of substantial size, so all the financing rounds that are over 40 or 50 million euro, the majority of them are done by non-European investors. So it's mostly US investors and Asian investors that are financing our companies that scale. This is great because they provide the network and they provide the equity to help these companies grow. But this is a missed opportunity for the European industry, both for the founders that have no choice but to be backed by non-European investors, and also for the European digital sovereignty, which is today under index on this very performant and also very strategic asset class. So I think that from where we sit, being able to create more and more European growth stage funds will be one critical milestone in order to create more and more European companies that will help digitalize public services, that will help digitalize the transformation of businesses, that will help achieve over the 90% of European Union small and medium enterprises have basic level of digital intensity. So, for example, in that target, we invested in a company that's called Planity. Planity, it's a booking software for the beauty industry. So the beauty industry is a very fragmented market. It's mostly composed of SMEs, and Planity is helping them being more efficient in the way they take booking appointments. So we address, by financing these companies and by operating on a daily basis with them, we can help achieve some of the targets. I don't know and there are many different funds, so every fund and every growth stage investor is focusing on a different subset. So I assume that by having a diversity of European funds, we can help create this very dense European ecosystem. But something that is critical is that we ourselves have the financing to back these companies, and that we do not rely too much on international investors, although it's great to have international investors, but it's very also important to have regional ones. And so there are a number of initiatives that were mentioned previously that contribute to this goal. So, for example, the Invest EU program is one of them. The Scale Up Europe program also is one of them. So that is helping having more and more European growth funds. But I think that especially in the current macro situation, being able to connect the right pocket of financing with the right companies that are addressing these challenges is something that is very critical and where we can play a role.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for mentioning some very important European programs like InvestEU. My next question would be to Mr. Nicolai on whether she would have any suggestions for stakeholders who would like to engage more in conversations, but also in the implementation phase. How do you recommend that they do this in the future, in the coming months?
Well, I think this discussion shows how broad the debate should be and how open everybody involved in the Digital Decade program is to kind of, work together and collaborate effectively to actually make the best out of it. So I think this year, where we are, all of us, having the, innovative, pioneering year on putting in place the Digital Decade program is a huge occasion to work, at a national level when you have, for instance, like we heard very well from our Finnish representative, opportunities to get engaged, the opportunity to do that. We will, from the European Commission level, of course, also provide concrete examples to stay in touch with stakeholders. We heard from Madame Dlabajová that it's so important to kind of keep track of the conversation, for instance, with the SMEs. So we have to make that work for the SMEs. This means that we have also with industrial associations to really reach out and hear about their needs to make sure that we move in the right direction. We shouldn't forget the broader society. I think there's an important aspect for citizens to understand what we are doing. We can all, at the European level, at national level, at local level, work on that. I think to show concrete examples and to talk about that, like we are doing today, like we heard, from an investor's perspective, from a city perspective, is so valuable. So I think it's really not to forget that this Digital Decade program that is now there, that is now in the official journal, is not there to be kind of forgotten, but actually to really work on it in practice and keep that momentum and create occasions where we can come together, not only the representatives of the institutions, but also in broader spaces such as this broad debate here. But I think all of us have a task not to do this only in our silos, but really to reach out and to ensure that people understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, and how they can contribute to it.
Excellent. I would like to address the same question to Ms. Dlabajová. If you have any suggestions for stakeholder consultation in the future, now, basically, in the coming months.
Well, I think a lot was already said about how to involve stakeholders. One thing I would always say to everybody, never give up to talk to EU institutions. This is something what I really very often hear, for example, from SMEs, which is my huge priority. I hear that they just say, well, nobody is listening to us, nobody is consulting us. No, you should never give up at all levels. You have the level of the European Commission. European Commission is doing consultations, and we are pushing as European Parliament to the European Commission to do a very timely and open consultation with all stakeholders. And sometimes we are criticizing, and Renate knows it very well, we are criticizing Commission that gives little space for consultation. Sometimes the timing is over holidays, over Christmas. We are very much criticizing this from the European Parliament. We need to give space for the right consultation. And of course, then there is another step. There is a step to consult people responsible in the European Parliament. So I'm very happy that a lot of associations, a lot of SMEs came to me immediately when they knew that I was appointed as rapporteur for Digital Decade. And you can always talk to your MEPs, to people who are responsible for the files. And I think the same, and now I am looking at Laura, the same goes to the national level. You can always talk to ministries and you can try to influence everything what is being prepared before even it goes at the Commission and at the Parliament level. So I think there are so many different opportunities. It's just the question not to give up and not to be waiting that somebody will come to you.
Thank you. My next question, I think, would be to Miss Laura Eiro on whether you have, as a Digital Decade member, board member, do you have any advice for us, the European Commission, when it comes to implementation and ways forward?
Well, I would say that you are on a very good track with this university and IT tool to share sort of experiences, both Futurium and the one to be used amongst the member states. So keep up the good work, I would say, and I would also encourage, of course, all the colleagues in the board to share their experiences. And indeed, as mentioned, we of course are also open in the member states for the stakeholder discussions to really make this happen. And I'm very much looking forward to the first Digital Decade report. I think that will really give us a good overview horizontally where we are at and show the gaps that we should be then focusing on. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe one more question to Ms. Bordelot. What do you expect to be the main obstacles when implementing the Digital Decade policy program? Of course, for you in terms of for cities, basically for local communities. What are the main obstacles? What do you expect them to be?
There are several, I think. I think that we talked a lot about cooperation. And of course, I mean, cooperation at different level of governments is essential, but also internally in each administration. I think that in many administrations, the working in silos is still very much a practice, while we really need, the cooperation, but also, sharing of experiences in each different sectors if we really want to achieve the targets and in general, I mean, digital transformation in at different level, I mean, in the city, but also this is valid also at national and EU level. Then, of course, funding, it's always one of the let's say element that is highlighted also from a city perspective, the need for accessing funding, but also better how better access those funding, how we can facilitate this. So I think that we really need to in a way facilitate, I mean, being that's also what we try to do, at Eurocities, but also through initiatives like Living.eu to really put all the players together and to be able to offer tools, guidance, support also to cities. I mean, if I think about Eurocities, we are a network with over 200 cities, but we have a very different cities, as part of the network, more advanced, less advanced, bigger, smaller. So we really need to be there to offer guidance to all different kinds of players, and this is what we are trying, I think, to do. With the tools that we are developing, but it's really something that I think needs to be in the mind of all policymakers. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And maybe the same question on what do you think will be the obstacles for the future I would like to address to Ms. Albizzati.
Yes. So first of all, I thought it was great to hear that the European Commission and the members are always, we should reach out to them and always there to discuss with us. I think for my perspective, one of the big challenges will be the financing to put in place this ambitious program. I think that there is an alignment of the targets, but in order to execute and implement them, we need to make sure, as I was saying previously, that there are enough European funds, early stage VC fund, and also later stage VC fund. And the European Investment Fund through Invest Europe or Scale Up Europe is part of the answer, but it is not enough. So we need to make sure that also private investors, European pension funds, or insurance companies, family offices are very much aligned with these targets, because one of the key conditions to the digitalization of European economy is that we are able to back our companies throughout the value chain, from the very early stage seed round up to the later stage growth round and up to public markets. So one of the key challenges is to have continuity in financing. We just published a report on the past IPO that highlights the crossover market in Europe. So investors and companies that are able to cross the gap between the venture capital, so the private market, and IPO, public market listing. And so we need to make sure that all the ventures that are launched in Europe are able to find financing even 10, 20, 50 years from now. And that represents significant amount. Just to give you an example, the GDP in the US is more or less the same as the GDP in Europe, but the US have 5 times more financing for the tech industry than Europe. And so something that we are striving to do is to make sure that we are able to leverage this financing in Europe, internationally, and that is true at the late stage growth level, but also on public markets.
Thank you very much. I would now like to turn to a general question open to all the panelists and all the speakers. If maybe in a couple of words you could tell us 3 main pieces of advice or 3 main takeaways from this seminar. Please jump in as you want. Miss Laura Eiro, maybe you could start.
Yes, I was just opening my mic. Thank you. So I would say agile, early collaboration, as mentioned, it's the key in getting everybody involved and committed in the member states. And I will have to align myself also on the need for the investment. So we really have to put our focus on promoting sustainable digital agenda, both for the public and private sector. Thanks.
Miss Bordelot?
Yeah, maybe from my side, I think that it's more about, again, the collaboration and the support. And what I maybe also want to stress is that we cannot give it for granted. I think that collaboration needs to be supported, needs resources, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. So it needs to be facilitated in terms of tools, measures, and practices. So I think this is one of the takeaways. Thanks.
maybe Ms. Dlabayova and Ms. Albizzati would also like to say something.
Thank you. I was asking from the beginning, but maybe I was not seen. Well, I have a couple of points. First of all, and it was already said, it's cooperation between all main EU institutions and all stakeholders. We will never achieve anything. And this structured dialogue we agreed on in the digital decade is a very important instrument because it will provide guidance and support to the member states. And I would like to encourage member states to take this as a help, as a guidance, not like a control from EU institutions. It's a really structured dialogue, and we need it. Then the second point, let's not work anymore, and let's really take it as our personal goal. Let's not work in silos, because we are all doing it. We are doing it even in the European Parliament. Sometimes the committees of the Parliament are fighting in between them about competencies. This is still happening in the European Commission, even if it's getting better. But different DGs, sometimes they are not connected as they should be. And the same, it's at the national level. Sometimes ministries are working in silos. So let's please put this apart and let's really find a synergy. And we will never make it without the synergies. It means from the cooperation point of view, but as well from the funding. If you don't put together European funding, national and regional funding, you will never achieve anything. So synergy is a key. And my last point, we know, and I said it already, the digital decade is many, many things, but above all, it is an opportunity, and it's opportunity for everybody. And there are three different pillars which needs, with one without the other cannot make it. So it's citizens, it's businesses, and it's public administration. If one of these pillars is not working, the others will never achieve the full digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Albizzati. If you have anything else to add on three main takeaways.
Yes, I'm very much aligned with the takeaway that were just said. I think I would just add that indeed the timing is now, and we cannot really wait. As a second takeaway, I think it is very important to have the financing at all stages and to have private financing together with public financing, who plays a critical role nowadays in the current macroeconomic situation. And then the third takeaway is that we should make sure to keep in mind very concrete sustainability targets. So we're not talking about digitalization at all costs. We know that together with the digital ambition, we are facing also a very important environmental crisis. And so I think that as what was just said, this program is a very big opportunity for all of us to achieve important results in terms of digitalization, but also in terms of concrete sustainability results. Environmental is one of them, diversity is one of them.
Many thanks, and I'm very happy to see that there's more than 600 people connected today, which really means that there is a lot of interest in this subject. And in fact, we will be following up with more webinars in the future. So really try to stay in touch, because there will be more to come. So I think we have a lot of questions coming in from Slido. Some of them are more technical than others. But one of them is about the role of small and medium-sized enterprises. I think quickly to Ms. Dlabayova, how can the European Commission be more proactive in involving small and medium-sized enterprises in their programs? Ms. Dlabayova.
Okay, do we have 5 hours of time? Because talking about involvement of SMEs, I think this is a really, really huge topic. I think there is a lot to be done, and I could start a lecture on that because, of course, it has been my priority last 9 years. I think we need to do a lot. SMEs are still complaining about that it's not a lot is being done for them. We are trying to push a lot on the Commission, and I'm sorry, of course, this is an eternal game between the European Parliament and European Commission, but we tried to have at least a regular dialogue between the two institutions. We created so-called SME union debate in the plenary, where Commission is coming to the plenary, and the Parliament is asking for concrete steps which has been done, concrete legislation, what we are doing for SME. This will happen every year. We had already 2 editions. But what is the main, what I really see as a main issue, we need to have constant attention to SMEs. In every legislation we have on the table, we need to take in consideration impact on SMEs. So we are pushing on having SME test, impact assessment on SMEs in every legislation. We don't want to see anything on the table of the Parliament without having SME test done prior it. And we are doing now very interesting studies in the European Parliament on cumulative impact of different legislation on SMEs. Because it's not only about one legislation, it's about everything what is happening, how much administrative burden this is creating to SMEs. So we need to monitor this, absolutely. And we are working a lot with the stakeholders. By the way, looking at Laura, I will be in Helsinki next week because we are starting a roadshow together with Business Europe, with one of the stakeholders. So what is very important, we need to go in the member states as well to looking what we can do directly for SMEs and what they really need. But my main issue is to get out the administrative burden, to do SME test, and trying to not making situation of SMEs even more difficult in these already difficult times.
Thank you very much. So, as I said before, we have a long list of Slido questions coming in. We promise to address all of them on Futurium. So Futurium is the platform, the Digital Decade Futurium community is a platform where we basically encourage stakeholders to get involved, to share best practices, but also to ask questions to the European Commission directly. And so I will let you know, but the idea is to get back to you on all the questions that were asked on Slido in the coming days. So rest assured that you will get some answers. I would now like to go to the conclusions. I think we're running a bit out of time. So I will leave the floor for the conclusions to Ms. Nicolai.
Thank you very much, Lavinia, and thank you all for this interesting debate. I learned a lot. I take away some key aspects. Overall, I'm very happy with the positive spirit that comes across in this university event. We are, I think, united in aiming for a high ambition in using the Digital Decade program. So I think I take away that we want to use this as a strategic tool with a high level of ambition and not as business as usual. Somebody said we want to seize the momentum, and I think that's exactly the spirit that we wanted to create with this event today. Also, I thank you very much. No, it's I see myself half. Anyway, it doesn't matter as long as you see me. The second key takeaway for me is that you have all underlined how important cooperation and collaboration is in this context. So this is not a one institution only exercise. This is not even a one level of government only exercise, and this is not a one industrial sector only exercise. This only works if we join forces, if we bundle our efforts in the government structures at the local level, like at the central level, in the institutions, not only the Commission, but also also with the other institutions, staying in touch, not only one member states, but member states working together, sharing information, stakeholders being involved. And as was said, this has to be something that is involving citizens, businesses, and administrations. I also was very impressed with the very concrete examples that we were discussing this morning, very concrete examples from an investor's perspective on how actually we can move forward to create the unicorns, the European unicorns and the European kind of ecosystem of tech companies that we all want to see in Europe with European investment also. So I think that was very promising. I also was very impressed with the concrete ideas that are existing at a local level, to bring also the online best practices more closely together between the cities, how much we can advance. And I was very impressed also to hear from one member state's perspective how advanced you are in really having this joined up approach and also using digital means to advance your policies on that. All this gives me a lot of hope that we can really make a difference with the Digital Decade program. I have also a lot of hopes for the multi-country programs and projects. I repeat my call that the deadline for calls is on the 7th of February. I heard interesting idea. I could kind of, imagine that we will have interesting projects to create a European ChatBG, to really move on mobility data spaces, to have digital twins cities projects, and many, many more. So my conclusion is, let's, as you have said all yourself, let's capitalize on this momentum. Let's not use this as a bureaucratic exercise. Let's be united and committed and seize the moment in this. Thank you very much for your participation, for your interest in this work. And I hope that I will see some of you at the next meeting of the board on the 9th of March, and that we can all stay connected in this joint endeavor to make the Digital Decade program a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just a few things, as we repeated already from before and also on the Slido, we will get back to you on questions that have come up on Slido, on Futurium, and there will also be a recording posted on Futurium on this Connect University. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for collaborating. Thank you also to the speakers and to all the panelists. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.